everybody, I'm Ione, and today I am with Dydine Umunyana. And first of all, we're going to also just share this live stream to our other pages while we get started. So excuse us, but I hope everybody is well.
I can't find it. Well.
That's okay, we can share it after the fact.
After.
Yes, but apparently we are live, even though neither of us can find it. So first of all, I'm gonna do this while you introduce yourself to everybody, if you wouldn't mind. That would be fantastic.
Sure. My name is Dydine Umunyana. I am from Rwanda. I was born there and raised there until 3 years ago that I moved here to Hollywood.
Quite what she was saying is quite
Hollywood,
different from what she expected.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what else should I say? I'm a survivor of the Rwandan Genocide. Yes, I was there and I was a kid. And what I do now is sharing my story and make sure I inspire as many people as I can so that it doesn't happen to anybody else, because I know how painful it can be.
So yeah, first of all, wow. Can you tell me, I remember reading a bit about it at the time and kind of seeing what was going on. I didn't really understand. So it would be really great if you could maybe share a little bit about what it was and your experience of that, because I can't even begin to imagine.
Well, it was a nightmare. I was a kid. I was almost 4 years old, so I don't really recall everything. The only thing I had was nightmares after the genocide. And but when I was growing up, because it was so hard for me to understand what really happened, seeing my family, what they went through. My dad's family, the whole family was already killed. So I grew up really with the aunties and uncles, and just hearing stories they existed, I couldn't quite understand it. So
wait, sorry, your uncles and aunties had been killed in the genocide?
Yes.
And so you had only heard stories of them after that?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So I'll sometimes see pictures, and sometimes they burned houses, so you cannot even find the pictures. My grandparents, I never met them. Though my grandmother met me, and she gave me my last name, which I love so much. And
Umunyana, I know how to say it.
Yes, you know what it means.
It's morning. Good morning, right? The Spanish? No, tomorrow.
No, it doesn't mean that.
My bad. Okay, I totally
misunderstood. It just pronounced it almost the same way.
She said she told me you say it's like manana with a in the front, so then I assumed that's what it was.
When I'm helping Americans to learn how,
or stupid English people,
to learn how to say it.
Okay, so what does it mean? What's the real meaning?
The real meaning, it means something you see once in a lifetime and it brings you luck.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It is. Thank you.
So what was the situation in which you and your family, were your parents okay? Like, what happened?
I grew up at my grandparents' house, so I didn't really meet my parents since birth until after genocide.
Okay, and when was that?
It was 19. The genocide was only 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. It was, though it was fast and they really succeeded because 1 million people were killed in that just 100 days. But it was really fast. It was quick. And so I met them in the same year of 1994. But I was, of course, as a kid, I was expecting some love from parents, the love that I never had before. But it wasn't there.
Why?
Well, the whole country, they had lost everything, their families, and like my father, he was the only one still standing, so he really lost it. He didn't really see life after genocide. So you can imagine expecting love from that person who already lost it. It was kind of not fair. Yeah. Probably of me. But yeah.
So did your parents then have to, so you said you stayed with your grandparents, your grandma?
Yes.
So you were somewhere safe, somewhere different, that your parents left you there with them, or?
No, so before 1994, before the genocide, the Hutu government used to kill or put in jail young people who seemed to fight back. So when they were preparing the genocide so that it can succeed, every Tutsi young man or young woman, they were being killed or sent in jail. So my parents were in their 20s. I'm their firstborn, and my dad fled before my baby brother was born, and my mother fled as well right after my baby brother was born. So I really grew up, I didn't really know them. And sometimes because the grandparents wanted to protect us, we will think they're our parents. Mm-hmm. So I really learned that I had other parents from just listening it from my cousins or my aunties. So during the genocide, they were in Uganda. My parents were in Rwanda.
Right.
I was the only one in Rwanda, and in my grandparents' house.
Now, this is like such a horrible thing, but so you were safe because your grandparents were older, so they weren't a threat.
So I stayed in my grandparents' house before the genocide because
nobody knew that this was happening. It was going to happen.
No, the genocide really, it was planned and prepared, but it was something that happened overnight. People did not know that it was going to be that way because it was just the president that time in 1994, his plane crashed. It was coming from, it's a long story. People will have to Google it and learn more about it. Mm-hmm. But really, that president's plane was crashed on April 7th. The evening of April 6, 1994, and the Hutu extremists blamed every Tutsi who lived in the country that they have killed the president. So they called out using radios, everything that was there, the propagandas to go out there and kill every Tutsi, children. They didn't really care then. In that period of 3 months, they didn't really care if you were a child or a middle person. It was just, they would just go out there and kill.
So then how were you safe? How did you survive that? Was you just somewhere?
Well, I don't know. I cannot intellectualize how I survived because I think it was just luck. It's a long story. We'll probably have to sit here for days.
She has a book, which we'll talk about, and I'm sure you go into detail in the book.
I did my best. Yes, it was not easy, but I did my best. I didn't really quite remember. I remember a few things that was really was overwhelming, and of course everything was unexpected, but there are things that for a child that I was not supposed to see, and they didn't leave me alone after the genocide as well. So I try in the book to use all the information I got from my mom, who was amazing, and from my friends, and growing up in a country after genocide. I was a survivor, but at least I had all parts of my body, because most of my friends did not, so, or even have a parent. Some of them did not even know where they're from, because they were very young and they didn't have anybody to tell them this was your home or something. So, yeah.
Wow. So what was it like growing up after that time? And you said, so your dad was obviously traumatized by everything and you didn't get the kind of love that you were hoping for in that respect, but like, how was it growing up after that?
It was hard, but I didn't know any better. So somehow as a child growing up in it was almost like another war inside my own home. And my father's situation grew worse and worse day by day. It was really hard. It was, and but I thought everyone lived the same way because I didn't know
That's interesting.
Yeah. All I knew was that what was happening in my house, and I hated life. That's what I would say. I really didn't understand why in the world God will create life if He meant to suffer. Those were questions I asked myself every day.
Did you ever get any answers to those questions? Or do you feel differently about that now?
I do. I wouldn't be sitting here if I did not. Yes. It didn't happen overnight, but me, I was like a teenager, when you want everything to be perfect, everything to be great, but nothing is going well as you wish. So there were times that I would want to give up on life, and then I'll be saved. I've been given so many chances. In the genocide, I literally asked for milk when I was about to get killed. So I don't know why I'm still standing.
What do you mean you asked for milk when you were about to? How do you know that?
I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom took me back to where I survived. She wanted to help me. She didn't know why I was having all those nightmares, because if I will wake up thinking everyone is being killed, and I will be saying things that she, because she wasn't there during the genocide. She was getting scared if I may end up like my dad, and she took me back there. So that's how I learned a little bit of how I survived, and so we met up somebody. Was when the first day of the genocide, I think we were leaving the house and from my grandparents' house, and my aunt, who was now my age now, she was literally taking care of more than 10 children. She was single. She never had children before, but when the genocide began, she was the only adult person in the house, so she had to take care of all of us. And she had my baby brother, who was 1.5 years, I think, by then, in her bag. And she asked for all my older cousins to hold hands of younger cousins, so when they fled in the streets. But then when the group of attack, the people in their family, they used to call them, the killers during the genocide used to call them themselves in their family. Which translates those who attacked together. So it was a civil killers that the government had been training young people to kill. So they probably the government, for me, I never really quite understand how people can get on that level of just like, it's I don't know. It's
insanity. Like it's sick, mentally sick.
It is. People. It is. Yeah, it is. But people can get there, I think. When people start dividing themselves and they categorize them, they normalize those kind of actions, and they call themselves more humans than those they are abusing, which is really scary for me. Because when they were killing Tutsis, they were calling them snakes, cockroaches. And
there's a lot of that. Donald Trump seems to do a lot of that with people and calling people animals and stuff like that. No, it's really disgusting, because then it does justify people allowing to attack other people. And
people
dehumanizing.
When you dehumanize someone,
then you're okay to attack or kill.
You justify your actions towards hurting them, which is not okay at all, because the younger generations of Hutus, because I think it's really funny, because when I grew up and learned more about the Rwandan history and how people killed each other, it was so interesting for me that even the Tutsis, the Hutus, and Twa, they never existed before. So before the colonials, it was just social classes,
right?
And then after when the colonials came in, it was in 1930s, 1940s.
Then all the divisions started.
Yes, all the divisions started. They gave them ID cards and they will categorize them. You were Tutsi or Hutu. Then it became an ethnic instead of a social class. So, and they taught them how the Tutsis are not from Central East Africa. They might be from Ethiopia or Somalia. So the Hutus said, wait a minute, because the Tutsis used to be the elite class, and the Hutus will be the middle class, and the Twa, they were the lower class. So when the colonials, the German and Belgians, taught my ancestors, how different they were, and how the Tutsis are from Ethiopia, the Hutus were like, wait a minute, why would these Tutsis take over our country and lead us, and why they're not from here? This is our land.
Right.
So really the conflict began from there, and they started killing the Tutsis in 1959, and they fled. The Tutsis fled to neighboring countries in 1968. So the 1994, it was the final point of just exterminating every Tutsi on a Tutsi race on the face of Earth.
Wow.
So that's when I was born.
Wow.
Sometimes I'm like, oh, I was born in the wrong time.
I mean, you're here and you're thriving, so...
Well, I am surviving.
Yeah. Yes, you
Still
are.
Surviving.
Thriving, I would say.
Surviving LA traffic.
Yeah.
Well, I don't drive.
You'll still be in an Uber having to deal with it. I love that now that's your problems. That's the ultimate first world problems now. You've gone from surviving genocide to LA traffic.
Yes.
I'm glad that that's what you're dealing with now. And it puts it in perspective for us whenever anyone is complaining about LA traffic.
Yes.
This is really fascinating because there's just so much history and things that I didn't know, and that is really cool. So you were just telling a story about your aunt had taken all the brothers, the kids away, and so because you were saying on the first day of the genocide that had happened.
Yes.
Just wanted you to maybe finish that story, because and then your mom took you back there and it came back to you and you
okay, well, that first day of the genocide when the attack came, I got separate from my family. Everyone ran for their safety, of course. And my cousin, her name is Mignon, which means cute in English. She was, I think, 7 years old or 8. I don't know how. She was the one who was holding my hand, and I lost her, and she lost me. Well, as stupid as it was, at 4 years old, of course, I ran in the home of perpetrators. But they were my neighbors, so I knew their children because we were neighbors in Rwanda. Kids play together from the whole neighborhood, so you will know the kids, you know those neighbors. And I guess for somehow I went there, and they were they had a lot of sons and boys in their families. They were all civil killers because they were Hutus, and they had lined up a lot of Tutsis who ran there who did not know that that was a home of perpetrators. So that's how I ended up there. And it's a long story. They killed everyone, and I asked for milk. I swear, I go into details in the book. You don't want me to cry on the social media.
I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I also don't want you to.
I don't want to depress people. It's a lunchtime somewhere.
Don't want to ruin your lunches. It's very kind of you. Wow, that's intense. So what happened since then for you to kind of get to where you are now? And I'd love for you to tell people about what it is that you're doing now, and what you've done with the organization that you work for and stuff like that back in Rwanda and then here.
Well, I think it was a long journey until I was 18 years old, and I was still in high school at 18 years old, and there was this program. They were selecting few students, influential students in my school, to go to the museum and learn the history of the country. But that time, at 18 years old, I was really this angry teenager, doesn't understand a thing at all, who blames everyone and everything.
I mean, quite rightly so, given what you went through. Yeah,
right. I was entitled.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of would have.
It was hurting me in a way.
Yeah.
It wasn't really hurting the people that I hated or the people that I was blaming. It was really consuming me and my soul in a way. Yeah. And I couldn't see beyond my present and my past. So I guess I was lucky to be selected among those influential students. There were 30 students, and we went to the museum and visit the whole museum, learn the history of the genocide, where the genocide came from, where the divisionism and the colon, everything from 1800s, and really learn who the Rwandans were before they were divided, and how they ended up on killing each other. So
Right.
for me, that was the best thing that has ever happened to me, to look at my classmates and not look at them as just Hutus, look at them as children who are also ashamed of what their parents did, or where they could categorize them, they did. So it was kind of like really me being able to understand, even to be able to listen to them, because I never give them a chance to even talk to me. So when we were at the museum, I like to wander around. I found myself in a room of children victims of the genocide. And there was all these beautiful pictures of children who were 2 years old, 4 years old, my age or older. And under those photographs, they will put a note of what they loved, their dreams, and the last thing they said before they were killed, and how they were killed. So for me, it was the first time in my life I ever appreciated life, and see it as an opportunity, and just see that, wait a minute, I was supposed to be hanging on this wall, and I'm not here. That's a chance I've been given, and I never even asked for it. So these children never had the chance to live their dreams. How can I turn my life around? It was a turning point for me.
So then what happened next?
Well, what happened next? I went back to school.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that was the turning point for me. But I think the choices I made after that, when I look back, they were so far different from the choices I used to make. Right. So when I finished high school, I would just follow my heart, follow my dreams and what I loved to do. I loved singing, I loved writing. Those were things that somehow saved me when I was growing up. I used to not be that kid who would share to her friends what happened, because growing up in a country where everyone has their own misery, you just be like, oh, they share their misery, and then you will think, wait a minute, my life is actually fine. So you can't internalize everything and just be like, I'm fine. But I will write my emotions and cry on that piece of paper. That was what somehow helped me. So I followed that when after 18 years old, me, and I ended up doing it, and it got me here. So
you're saying you worked for an organization, an English company, and they help to stop genocide, obviously, around the world, and then they have a museum in the UK, you were saying, and then they've opened one in Rwanda?
Yes, they're called Aegis Trust.
Aegis Trust. AGES?
Yeah, AEGIS.
Trust.
Trust. Yes. And they have a museum in England, and they came, I think, in Rwanda 2010 or 11 to build the Kigali Genocide Memorial. It's the biggest memorial in Rwanda. It's a beautiful memorial. And so it was actually the same program that I went to when I was 18 years old. But I didn't know. I thought it was a government program. But it was the same museum. And I think when I was 20, I started a nonprofit, Umbrella Cinema Promoters, that was helping young women to share their own stories through film, because that's where it was. I was in writing and doing documentaries around the country. And so when I launched the nonprofit, that's when I was appointed as a youth peace ambassador for this particular nonprofit. That turned out to be the same nonprofit that had a program to help young kids to go to the museum and learn the history of the country. So I worked for them for 6 months back in Rwanda, traveling around the country, interviewing people from all backgrounds, from perpetrator side, prisons, and survivors, rape victims. It was kind of a lot. And after 6 months, they invited me to work with them here. And I started working with them here for 6 months again. And I was doing public speaking. That's how I met Arno.
How we were introduced to the Arno Michaelis.
Yeah. So, and I would be doing public speaking. But then my public speaking really was focused on the history of Rwanda. And I never would go to my personal stories.
But that's changed now, has it?
It changed when people will poke me. Asking me personal stories. And
because that's what really does connect with people on a human level. I think listening to and understanding what other people went through. It's those kind of stories that really hit home and really force people to kind of, I mean, the whole idea of everything that you're doing is to stop this from happening again, and hearing those stories.
To see it when it's even to see it in the beginning, not just wait until the violence is there, you know.
Right. And that's why times like now, when there is so much division and there is so much hatred being spewed about, and a president who kind of likes to incite racial hatred, that's why it really upsets me, because it's not a joke. It's like serious. This is how it all begins.
It starts when you look at someone and you feel they are
inferior.
They're a threat to you, or because sometimes people do it because they're protecting. They kind of think they're protecting themselves. But how can you protect yourself from 4 years old? When you were a man, you know. But that's how
they justify
it. And when you've learned that hatred since because you know the hatred really began the generation that was born in Rwanda from 1959. The people were born that time until 94. Those were probably 80% of the killers. The families, the Hutu families, that had children that were born in between. Those 3 decades. So they didn't really learn anything else. Only they learned the hatred towards the Tutsis, how the Tutsis were not humans. So when you were exposed to just that hatred, you don't know anything beyond that.
I don't know. I mean, I've never been raised to hate like that. I do just feel like there's a sense of any human where, as much as brainwashing exists, and there's a level where you know that murdering and hating people is wrong. Like even speaking to Arno about, Arno, for everybody that doesn't know, was a former white supremacist, and I interviewed him, and he's really great. As much as you have that hate and you justify it, you don't feel good. It doesn't feel right. You know it's wrong. You have to know that it's wrong to have that much hatred towards humans.
So I think Arno was lucky that his family did not raise him to have such a hatred. So he really wasn't in between those two worlds.
So you think if you're raised by parents...
So if your parents, your government, everything, the whole society is justifying your anger, you don't really know anything else except that anger. And Arnold was lucky to have his co-workers, his boss, that was able to show him different, to show him that's not okay. You can actually be nice. You can actually share your lunch with someone you think they're different color, but when you're hungry, you can actually eat on their sandwich.
So do you think then that, because to me, I think that's letting people off too easily to say that if you're, I mean, and it's hard for me to have this conversation because I wasn't raised in a society that teaches me to hate. My parents that told me to hate people because of their race or whatever, or religion. I wasn't raised like that. But I still feel like it takes away responsibility as a human, even if you're raised in hate, to still turn around and say, this doesn't feel right, no.
But you know, mostly what for me, for when I was interviewing all these perpetrators and whatever, when you're in your 20s, you were a teenager, you want to make it, you want to show up in the world as the most important person, whatever, you were trying so hard. And when what is exposed to you is only hatred, and there's all these false promises, sometimes I don't know, maybe, but your brain probably...
There's different development that's going on, and you're trying to seek some kind of sense of belonging.
And the path, I guess, because when you're angry, when whatever, it's the easiest thing to do. To be angry at someone,
Yeah.
It's so easy to
I mean,
do it.
it's amazing because we're just, as humans, we're so easily manipulated, and let's quickly talk about your book. I'm going to see if there's any questions, if anybody has any questions, and tell me about your book quickly.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so we've got some questions. What is the name of the nonprofit?
Ages Trust.
Oh, we did do that. We even spelt it out, didn't we?
We did.
And then your company is the Umbrella
Press.
Umbrella Press,
Yes.
which is where you produce videos and things like that for people.
Yes.
And I would love for you just to tell us about Embracing Survival, your book too.
Embracing Survival.
Mm-hmm.
This is the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Amazon, and it really tells a story, the genocide, through the eyes of a child. And mostly I tried to give people the history background of where really the conflict came from and where it got us to, and the aftermath. And the aftermath is stronger in this book because that's where really I was able to like process everything and see it. That's the life I really, really know. And sometimes that's where I still am healing from. Because because though the genocide affected me, but I'm now like those who are like a teenager, who are like 13. I have a friend who was raped at 13 years old with the genocide. She lost her dad and a sibling. So she knows everything. She knew how everything, she has the memory of everything, which is harder.
Yeah.
For me, I'm one of the lucky ones that were so young, and I don't have memory for everything. Sometimes I'm just like, even the little memories I have, they're not easy. So how do they really do it? So then that gives me an understanding of the situation of my dad, who still has the PTSD from it. So now as I grow older and see the reality, I'm able to really understand him. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and doing what you're doing and writing the book and getting up and speaking. We didn't really talk about it that much, but yeah, you do speaking engagements and share stories, and it's just so amazing that you've managed to transform and get this out of what happened. And
it's a process. Every day I try to better myself and and know that at the end of the tunnel there's a light, and I won't touch it. I want to get to that light, so just running positive in my life, it helps me, just knowing that I can't give what I don't have. So trying to work on myself. Writing was my healing process. This book really helped me, just looking back and look at my life. And I was able to even remember things I didn't know that I blocked from my memories to not even want to think about it. But when I was writing it, I had to go back there if I really want to share my message to the world and let somebody out there who's going through the same thing know that, okay, it's okay, that it's going to be okay, and just keep going, thrive, survive. And we're all survivors, I believe we're all survivors. Even waking up in the morning and realize your whole body is working.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It is a miracle. So we are working miracles around.
Agreed. 100%
Yes.
agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to everybody for checking it out.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I
fun.
love you, girl. You rock, somebody says right there. So, yes.
Oh, it's my friend.
Oh,
Soleil.
hi,
I love you more.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.